Happy Thursday, everybody. Last night, a blog post came out about the next spiritual gift that we're going to be discussing, and that is the gift of seeing. Welcome to Spiritus Walking. I am Tracee Ford. I am going to be your host for this week's episode. So let's just get right into it. Seers, they possess the ability to see through spiritual eyes as opposed to physical eyes. However, there are various different perspectives on what a seer is and what they are. The perspective of what they can do is pretty consistent across all the research that I've done. So initially when I did my research, Wikipedia is the place that I typically go to research various different topics, and this was no exception. I went there and it said to me that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Joseph Smith were actually the origins of seers, which is not completely accurate. I started doing more research at that point because that didn't seem quite right and didn't sound quite right. So the critical question that I asked myself in doing this research and finding that answer first was, aren't shamans seers? Aren't people that can communicate with the dead, aren't they seers because they can see into the past? You have to look at all the perspectives, and the ancient perspectives are just as important in this situation as the Christian perspective. So we're going to explore some of those facets this evening in tonight's episode. So first, let's talk about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and their interpretation. They say that seers act as an interpreter to clarifying things. A seer can see the future events, they can see past events, and this can be done through the power of God operating through them. A seer can look through, like I said, their spiritual eyes and make sense of what is being seen. That is their gift. They can not only see, but they can make sense of what they're seeing. So that's the only difference I saw as far as like the conventional seers of, well, they see the past and they see the future and they talk to the dead and they can't. When you're getting started, you can't really interpret what you're seeing. You know you're seeing something, but you can't interpret it. True seers, according to this doctrine, they understand what they're seeing. So in saying that, are all people, do they have the ability to be a seer? And according to Jim Driscoll's research, a seer is a person, any person, who receives sensory, and this is quoted, quote, sensory input from the spiritual realm, unquote. Driscoll supports that many individuals are seers, that it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a particular type of person that can be a seer. Most don't even know that they have the gift for three reasons. The ability to relate to quote-unquote odd things, and they often have active and vivid imagination. So what I got from that was that sometimes seers just think that they have active imaginations, that it doesn't really mean anything, that they're just seeing things, and you know that they're very creative type people, and that's what they do. They just see things, and they attribute that to imagination. And what Driscoll is saying is that's a lot of times people that can see or have that ability don't even know it for that reason. They think that it is imaginary. They can often also actually see things like with their human eyes, like out of the corner of their eye, or they actually can physically see things, but again, they attribute it to coincidence, that it's not real. So they don't even know that they have that gift because of that reason. Secondly, seers don't realize, as I said, that they are experiencing the ability. and that they have been experiencing the ability since the first day that they started. They don't understand. And from the Christian point of view, seers, they're dismissive because they don't realize that God is trying to communicate through them. So they dismiss it. They, again, denial. They're in denial. They don't understand what's happening to them. The third reason that Driscoll mentioned is that they don't know, as we've said with the previous citations, they don't know that they're experiencing the gift that they have. They don't even realize it. And then they don't know what to do about it. So I know that sounds kind of redundant, but that is what the research is yielding. So let's switch gears and talk about ancient roots, because that's really what helps us understand this particular gift set. In order to understand anything, you have to understand where it comes from. So we're going to talk about the ancient roots. The premise for understanding a seer has to come from there, I think. I think you can take into account the Christian point of view because it's very valid. But you have to understand what ancient people thought. Because ancient people are very different, or were very different from what we are today. I think maybe they were more open-minded because they weren't inundated with media. They weren't inundated with doctrine. However, in the flip side of that, we are very lucky that we have media and that we have rules and regulations, because it developed us into who we are, and it makes us able to connect with other people. Whereas in ancient times, it was very hard for people to connect across the globe. With media and social networking, that's not an impossibility anymore, and we're able to share our gifts and share our thoughts and ourselves with other individuals who are thousands and thousands of miles away, if not all the way around the world. So in ancient times, the premise was that a seer could see things that others could not. They were endowed with this special gift from the gods, that they were able to communicate with the spiritual realm, and that they were special in that effect, or in that sense. They could also see the future, and they, as I said, they could communicate with the gods. Seers were also known as oracles, prophets, and shamans. So we're not only going way back into ancient times, but we're also looking at tribal histories and American Indians, because shamans were very common in the American Indian culture, and still are very common in the American Indian culture. In saying that, the people that are opposed to the shamanistic studies say that they just get high because they use opiates and they go into the spiritual realm that way. I don't quite believe that. When I was in undergrad school, we had to actually do a research project on shamanism. And I wish I would have listened to it a little bit more, because I didn't. Now that I'm older, I wish I would have. Dr. Mark Marabello offered that in one of his courses, and we were required to read the book that he gave us, and I did, but I didn't quite understand what they were talking about, and now I think I could a little bit better. But my understanding of shamanism is that they were able to travel outside of their body to make connections with spiritual deities, as well as the dead, as well as, nature spirits. They were able to do that, and they helped their tribe in doing that. They were considered of the utmost respect in their tribal culture. Let's backtrack. I'm sorry, I'm getting off course. Let's go back to ancient times. Seers have been used for various means to see. In Babylon, Egypt, and Greece, a seer usually relied on dreams to predict future events. So their cultures used their seers and the seers' dreams As I've always said, your dreams are a network for spiritual things to happen and to be revealed. And it's obviously not different back in ancient times. They used it for the same things. And seers were able to have these wonderful dreams or ominous dreams, depending on what was going on within that village or within that culture or within that community. And often, for example, with ancient Greece, you had seers who would talk about omens, and oracles like Apollo at Delphi were used as a temple so seers could communicate. Which brings me to ancient astronaut theory. Ancient astronaut theory is exploring the possibility of various different, they're exploring all kinds of different things. But one of the aspects that they have kind of brought up for debate is, in such a situation with the oracle and the Apollo at Delphi, is it possible that the seer was communicating with alien beings who are of a higher intelligence, and then they interpreted that as them being gods and then gave names to the gods? Is that out of the realm of possibility? I don't see why it would be, because essentially in the Christian faith, as well as in many other faiths, there is a higher power or a deity, a star being, a higher presence, a higher intelligence. And that's all that ancient astronaut theory is stating, is it possible that ancient peoples communicated with deities, higher intelligence, higher beings, and they were actually star people, which to me is the same as saying something about a god or a goddess or whatever you want to say. It's less boxed in the polytheistic point of view. And that's what ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and ancient Babylon, they believed in multiple gods. So with that being said, seeing and being a seer is not a new concept. It has its roots in ancient culture and ancient belief systems, as well as tribal systems. So where does it truly have its origins? It has its origins in the hearts of people. It has its origins in stories. For example, writing is a fairly new concept as far as what we can read. Tribal cultures wrote, and each tribal person understood that language. So is it safe to say that they had more knowledge than we did and were more open to the possibilities of spiritual gifts than we are? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that I don't believe that seeing has a soul root in the Christian faith. It goes farther than that. My feeling is that it's just like every other spiritual gift. Everybody has a little bit of something to offer. Everyone has something to give. Everyone has a piece of the stars in their blood, if you want to call it that way. The Christian faith operates on spiritual gift system all the time. Other religions, they have the spiritual gift system. American Indian they all have a system of spiritual belief, and certain people within those sections that possess gifts. I believe everyone possesses some type of gift. They just have to figure out what that gift is. So with seeing, it's no different. You have to explore that gift and find out exactly what Creator or your higher presence or what you believe wants you to do with that gift. It's your position to decide not to pursue that. And that is your God-given right. You're allowed to say, no, I don't want anything to do with this. You're allowed to do that. But at some point, your higher presence is going to impress upon you to use your gift for the betterment of society. It takes all of us to make it right. It takes all of us to stand up and fight for what we believe in, and to right wrongs, and to point at those who are saying, you're not doing something right, and to discuss it. It's up to us to use our gifts in that perspective. Some people are seers. Some people have the gift of discernment. Other people have both. Other people have the gift of interpretation. There are so many possibilities that we cannot box those possibilities in. I do think that we should reflect on our dreams. As I've always said, and I've always talked about in each episode, your dreams are important. They're a highway. And just like all the other gifts, they need cultivated. And that takes time, and that takes concentration, and that takes time alone with your source, with your creator, with your belief system. So if you are a seer, find your center and find what you can do and how you can do it. I also think that this gift, as well as others, is inherited. I believe our children possess beautiful things that we aren't completely aware of yet, and that we can tap into if we try hard enough. If your child comes to you and says, hey mom, I can see such and such in my room, don't dismiss that, because it's very possible. If you have a gift, it's very possible that it's been passed through the bloodlines. So keep that in mind when your children are coming to you. Take heart in what they say, because don't dismiss it, don't squelch it, because it's very possible that they very may well have these operating gifts, and children are more susceptible than adults, because adults they've had it pounded into their head that this isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. Where kids, they have that faith, they have that childlike faith where they believe what they see, and all they need is that encouragement. Now, I want to be specific and say there is a difference between seeing and mental illness. I always think that's very important to say, because the one illness where there are auditory and visual hallucinations present, and the one that always comes to mind to me is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a very serious mental illness, and there are auditory and there are visual hallucinations with that. Is it possible that some people that are diagnosed with schizophrenia are actually not schizophrenic and have these spiritual gifts? Yes, it's always possible. But I think that that is why psychologists and researchers have given us the tool of the diagnostic manual for psychology, because there is a certain criteria for schizophrenia that has to be met in order for the person to be diagnosed as such. They have to meet like 3 out of 4 of those criteria, 4 out of 6 of those criteria. They have to meet those in order to be diagnosed as schizophrenic. Willow Cross and I always talk about things like this, in that there's usually a reasonable and logical explanation for everything that you see, or everything that you feel, or everything that you do. It's only when the logic doesn't fit that it very well could be of a paranormal nature. So keep that in mind, because I don't want you to feel like I'm justifying illness, because I'm not. I think that there are people that sincerely are ill, and they are not seers, or they are not discerners, and I'm not saying they don't have a spiritual gift, but there's an illness there that needs to be treated, and treated properly. So I think that needs to be remembered each time we talk about different things like this. For now, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you have questions, always you can email me through my website. It's traceeford.com, and it's on the credits of this. Also, I'm trying to think of all the events that are coming up. A newsletter, I started a new quarterly newsletter. Jungle of Dreaming is the name of the newsletter. If you're interested in that, please contact me, because there is a form that you need to fill out so that you can become a part of the mailing list. Idolum has also been selected for Best Cover in Mystery Suspense by Authors Database, so that is up for votes right now. It's up for votes until October, so we'll be talking about that again at a different time. and the Dayton Book Expo is coming up, and that's in Ohio. If you're close to Dayton, Ohio, I will be there on the 3rd of May. I believe it's Saturday, and it's from either 9 to 4 or 11 to 4, but I think it's 9 to 4. I'll be there with my books and signing and talking and attending workshops there. And June, I will be at the Newark Library in Ohio doing a book signing and a book event. Then I think things will calm down in July. And August, I think, is calm. September, I think, is calm. I don't have anything scheduled for those times. And then in October, and I'm hoping I get to go. I don't know that I'll be able to or not, but there is a winery in the Carolinas where PDMI will be having some authors attend, and I would love to go. If that solidifies, I will let you know. The next episode will be mid-month in May. As I said, I'm down to once a month. I'm still doing Blog Talk Radio with Willow twice a month. This past Friday, I was unable to attend. I had a prior engagement that I had. And then I'm trying to think of everything else that's going on. Any changes that are ever made or any events that you want to talk about or see, they're always on my website. That website is constantly updated, so you can always go there to either contact me or see what's going on. The April Spring Fever, second annual Spring Fever blog tour, which I host, is going on right now. Some very talented authors are being featured every single night. And I think that's about it. Other than that, I wish you love and light and dream big, because whatever you do, be wonderful at it. Have a great day. Bye.